The U.S. claims China is violating human rights, but it is merely coincidental that the U.S. is outspoken against such violations in a nation that is its enemy. The U.S. raises the flag of human rights in China, rather than its own country, perhaps in an effort to harm China's reputation. If the U.S. truly cares about human rights, why are Americans still complaining about racism? We will discuss why the U.S. is so concerned about human rights in China, but ignores the right of its people to life in this video. We will also discuss the U.S.'s hypocrisy, which can break anyone's heart. Watch the video to the very end to find out if the U.S. claims are backed by evidence. And let's find out if people believe what the U.S. is claiming against China. Kindly take a moment to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe and turn on the bell notification feature to stay up to date with all our latest videos. The U.S. defends human rights whenever it observes another country doing so. This report claims that the U.S. has violated them more frequently than any other country. Nevertheless, the U.S. continues to criticize other countries, including China, despite having a flawed system that prevents people from enjoying their right to life. Who else would make a better target for such accusations than China? The United States recently decided to add 3 Chinese companies to the IDR Forced Labor Prevention Act entity list. The United States Ministry of Commerce has expressed strong displeasure and firm opposition to this decision, calling it an economic pressure move lacking in transparency and factual support. According to the Ministry of Commerce, this decision has interfered with China's internal affairs and unfairly suppressed Chinese companies under the act. The U.S. government's decision to add 3 Chinese companies to the list of entities covered by the IDR Forced Labor Prevention Act is a significant development in the ongoing hostilities between the two countries. The act was passed to address concerns about violations of human rights in the region of Xinjiang, China, which is home to a majority Muslim population. Its goal is to stop the importation of goods produced using forced labor. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce has made it clear that it strongly disagrees with and is unhappy with the U.S. decision. The ministry's spokeswoman claims that the action lacks both openness and a basis in truth. This criticism is focused on the idea that the U.S. has not offered conclusive evidence to back up its charges against the Chinese companies. One of the main defenses made by China is that the Xinjiang Supply Chain Business Advisory and any accompanying documentation represent a flagrant intrusion into Chinese internal affairs. Before we go any further, let us know if you are enjoying the video. Let's move on. China has consistently maintained that Xinjiang is a fundamental component of its territory and that it has the sovereign right to manage its affairs without interference from outside parties. The U.S. claims that its actions are intended to protect the rights of Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities in Xinjiang, where reports of human rights abuses, including forced labor and mass detentions, have surfaced. A central argument made by China is that there is no forced labor in Xinjiang, making this claim stand. This is a point of contention in the ongoing diplomatic dispute. A topic of major concern to the international community has been China's refusal to engage in forced labor in Xinjiang. China demonstrated that the United States' activities, such as adding Chinese companies to the entity list, are damaging the development and stability of Xinjiang, a prominent commercial region in China. Xinjiang is noted for its abundant natural resources and advantageous location for trade and connectivity. China claims that the U.S. actions have adversely impacted the legitimate rights and interests of businesses in Xinjiang. If these businesses are placed on the entity list, they may face sanctions and be unable to conduct business with U.S. entities, which could have a domino effect on the global economy and employment opportunities. China has also charged the U.S. with violating the human rights of people of Xinjiang belonging to numerous ethnic groups in the name of human rights. Beijing claims that its measures in Xinjiang are intended to ensure peace and economic growth in the region, and that the U.S. sanctions and the additions to the entity list are ineffective. China says that the U.S. shouldn't cite human rights as justification for applying sanctions against Chinese businesses and organizations, since these activities negatively affect the livelihoods of those in Xinjiang and make it more difficult to improve their quality of life in response to U.S. actions. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce has demanded that unethical behavior halt right away. The spokesperson made clear that China will take the appropriate steps to safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese businesses. This declaration demonstrates China's dedication to defending its economic interests and sovereignty. Further investigation is warranted in light of China's position on human rights in Xinjiang and its response to international criticism. From Beijing's standpoint, maintaining social stability in Xinjiang is the key goal of its efforts there, fighting extremism and advancing the economy. China claims that Xinjiang's vocational training facilities keep people who might be exposed to extreme ideology instruction and skill development. The government says that these programs are crucial for de-radicalization and the prevention of terrorism, but critics counter that the conditions in these facilities are coercive, citing charges of forced work and limited freedom of movement without providing any evidence to support their claims. Although China has continuously welcomed calls for independent investigations into these claims from international human rights organizations and governments, it appears that they are more interested in spreading misleading information. However, why is the U.S. doing it? By adding Chinese firms to the entity list, the U.S. aims to put pressure on these companies to ensure they don't grow, and the world views the U.S. as hypocritical in its approach to human rights. The addition of 3 Chinese firms to the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act entity list by the U.S. has also served to deepen diplomatic tensions between the two nations. The experts contend that the U.S. has been accused of violating human rights in its own country, including allegations of racial discrimination, police aggression, and problems with its criminal justice system. The experts view this as a double standard, whereby the U.S. blames others while disregarding its own problems. There is a geopolitical rivalry between China and the United States. The U.S. is using allegations of human rights abuses as a tool to undermine China's global influence and distract from its problems from the evidence. It is clear that the U.S. is only trying to distract the world, but will that be possible? The world is well aware of the U.S. reality. They don't fall into the U.S.'s trap. Most of the nations know that all sanctions the U.S. imposes on China are based on nothing but jealousy. It wants to limit China. But in reality, with each step, the U.S. hurt its reputation more and more. No one now cares about what the U.S. is saying because they know most of the claims are originating from lies, and all lies are being told to secure its interests. Even if this means using human rights violation labels, the U.S. does not shy away, can use anything to get its benefits. We would like to take a moment here and appreciate you all for commenting and sharing your opinions. Your insights always impress us. Why do you think the U.S. politicizes a sensitive issue like human rights? Do you think any country will fall for the U.S.'s lies? Should a country be thus self-centered? And now, let's hear from you in the comments section. That's where we wrap up things for today. If you enjoyed today's content, then leave us a like, subscribe, and ensure the bell notification is on to be notified of our recent content. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.